Today, we're diving into the story of DeBeers, the company that didn't just sell diamonds, it manufactured the very idea of what diamonds mean. From dusty South African mines in the 1870s to controlling nearly 90% of the world's diamond trade in the 20th century, De Beers built one of the most powerful monopolies in modern history. Backed by political clout, ruthless supply control, and one of the greatest marketing slogans ever: a diamond is forever. They turned a shiny rock into a global symbol of love and luxury. But the world changed, rivals rose, lab grown diamonds arrived, and the De Beers empire had to adapt or die. Let's unpack the rise, reign, and reset of the diamond cartel. Let's go all the way back to 1870. It all starts with discovery. Diamonds were discovered in South Africa in 1870s, creating a huge demand for mining equipment and other ancillary products, similar to the time of gold rush where everyone wanted to start digging up the ground in search for gold. Cecil Rhodes, a British national, had just moved to South Africa at the age of 17 for the warmer climate. He was suffering from tuberculosis and was told by his doctors that this would possibly help his condition. Although he was troubled by this sickness, he was quite smart and very entrepreneurial. Seeing the diamond rush in progress in the country he had just moved to, he made a unique observation that the conditions that miners work under are generally quite bad, hot, dry, and overcrowded. So he decided to start selling clean water and ice to the miners. This is an interesting point of entry into the market, which showcases that this guy was indeed quite smart, because even during the gold rush in the United States, the only people who made money, except for the very small percentage of miners who eventually struck gold, were the people selling mining equipment to the gold miners. Similarly, in this phase of the diamond rush, Rhodes decided not to enter the mining business himself, but act as an ancillary to the mining business. Very soon, within a year or two into making money with ice and water business, Rhodes decided that it was time to reinvest the profits into buying mining claims. He decided to partner up with Charles Rudd, another Englishman with the required technical skills in the mining business, who together founded the De Beers Mining Company, which was the name of the mine which they first acquired. Rhodes and Rudd were beginning to make solid moves in the mines. Back then, it was a rather unregulated and unorganized sector with thousands of miners working on their own in thousands of different mines. Rhodes and Rudd started to buy up claims one by one, primarily targeting underperforming or abandoned claims. Another important finding I had was that Rhodes constantly reinvested his profits into the company, rarely cashing out in the early years. Both of them worked personally in the mines along with the hired labor. After managing to consolidate their mining operations, the duo thought it was the right move to start moving into trading diamonds as well. At the time, there was stiff competition from much larger players like Barney-Barneto. Moving on to the late 1870s, by now Rhodes had established himself as a serious player in the game. He was buying more and more mining claims and expanding operations. He had also simultaneously developed good relations with financiers, including investors like Rothschild in the time. By this time, the diamond rush had also calmed down, and the space was now being dominated by large businesses who were acquiring the smaller individual players. Rhodes and Rudd also start developing political connections in South Africa, which will give them a nice edge in conducting business more smoothly, and not to mention in acquiring their competition as well. At this point, they are starting to really create a stronghold on the market. They are getting into hyper-competitive pricing wars to kill competition from smaller players and even giants like Barney-Barneto, who were the only two major players left by the end. Rhodes and Barneto were going hard at each other, both burning cash to grab each other's market share until Rhodes was able to secure funding from Rothschild, enabling him to buy up shares in Kimberley Central, which was Barneto's company. He also used his political connections to convince the government that a single consolidated company would benefit the Cape economy. They eventually convinced Barneto to merge operations with De Beers for a handsome payout. Now with consolidated power in South Africa, De Beers was starting to dominate the trade of diamonds as well. London was the main hub for distribution of diamonds. They set up the London Diamond Syndicate. They would only sell to select buyers called the sight holders. These site holders would then distribute the diamonds across the world to Europe, India, and the US. Diamonds that are mined are actually not in selling condition. They are still a very raw product called the rough diamonds, which is what DeBeers sold. DeBeers didn't actually control the entire value chain at the start. The site holders who bought the diamonds would then take the stones to Antwerp in Belgium, home to highly skilled cutters, get them cut and polished, and then they would take it to retail to be sold as is or in the form of jewelry. The place in the value chain was to control the supply of the rough diamonds, similar to the way Saudi Arabia today controls the supply of crude oil. By stock holding and hoarding, they are able to increase the price of crude and keep their revenue stream steady. De Beers did the same thing with diamonds, to artificially prop up the prices of diamonds by creating scarcity in the market. Rhodes wants nothing but whole control over the supply of rough diamonds in the world. He starts buying diamonds from mines all over the world. His philosophy was, even if we don't own the mine, we will control how the diamonds get to the market. Let me remind you, at this point, they control almost all of the mining in South Africa, which is at the time the largest source of natural diamonds in the world. And by buying up diamonds from other countries, De Beers had a 90% control over the uncut diamond supply of the world. By 1902, Cecil Rhodes had passed away at an early age due to his heart condition and tuberculosis, and the company was managed by the board members without any single person really taking up his throne. And as you can expect, in this time, the company hit a bit of a rough patch. Diamonds were still not a mainstream luxury item, only owned by the ultra-rich or the nobles in the early 1900s. Unlike gold, they didn't have a strong hold value either, making their demand very, very unstable. The World War I was also not too kind on the demand. A lot of wealth erosion occurred, and De Beers had to focus on stockpiling the diamonds to ride out the storm. That is until 1929, when Ernest Oppenheimer, not the scientist, became the chairman. He was the founder of Anglo American, a gold mining company in South Africa. By 1920s, as we saw, with De Beers not doing as well as it once was, Anglo American gained considerable power over the company's operations, where Oppenheimer joined the board in 1926 and became the chairman not too long after. Oppenheimer was honestly the real game changer in his era for the diamonds market. Rhodes had set up the London Diamond Syndicate, which had now become the Central Selling Organization, CSO. Oppenheimer made it the core of De Beers' global control. He was able to convince other diamond sellers like Congo, Angola, and Ghana to only sell through them. In exchange, they would offer them stable prices, which was very desirable in the time of the Great Depression. This allowed De Beers to control the supply of diamonds in the market and basically act like the central bank for diamonds. Something that I found interesting while doing research for this company was the strategy to deal with the Great Depression and World War II, which happened almost back to back. As the world recovered from one, it was struck with the other. In both the above scenarios, people were likely to have very little to no discretionary spending. So obviously, diamonds were not really a top priority for anyone. I thought the prices would definitely have collapsed, but actually on the contrary, because one company controlled such a significant portion of the supply, they just started hoarding the supply. They stopped mining for more diamonds, but did not dump their existing stock in the market, which would have led to prices plummeting. Their tight control on the supply ensured the price remained high for whatever amounts they were able to sell. Up until this point, as I mentioned, diamonds were an ultra-luxury item. The average person had no ambitions to own a fancy diamond. There was no well-established concept of a wedding ring either, as there is today. In 1938, De Beers hired an American ad agency, N.W. Ayer, with the mission to target the average consumer by making diamonds a symbol of love, foreverness, and commitment. They created the campaign, "A Diamond is Forever." This four-word tagline became one of the most iconic taglines in advertising history. What was so fascinating about this campaign was that they were not trying to sell the stone, but they were trying to sell the emotion. They didn't cash in on an existing tradition, but through a marketing scheme, they were able to create a whole new tradition in society. They were able to make diamonds ubiquitous with marriage and love. They even launched campaigns where they were able to set the price by saying a man should at least spend 1 month's salary on a wedding ring. With these campaigns, the demand for consumer grade jewelry diamonds skyrocketed. Virtually every nation had attached the concept of love with diamonds, and their strategy had worked wonders for them. Up until the 1980s, their marketing strategies and price fixing tactics had helped them gain more than the lion's share of the market. But things were starting to change. There were new mines discovered in Australia, Canada, and Russia, which were producing equally high grade diamonds. There were also questions raised against DeBeers at the time for using slave labor and hiring local militia to control their claims over the mines in Africa, which was starting to really hurt their reputation. There were growing concerns about how far do people want to go to buy jewelry if it meant that it cost someone their arm. With the demand for ethically mined diamonds growing, other regions that had started producing diamonds decided to cash in on it. They refused to sell their diamonds through De Beers and sold it directly in the open market, resulting in lower prices. De Beers still had majority of the control, but by hoarding their diamonds, they were losing cash big time, and with more and more players emerging, that strategy was just not sustainable in the long run. The US government also sued De Beers for aggressive anti-competitive practices and price fixing, which further hurt their reputation globally. Fast forward to today, De Beers still happens to be one of the major players in the diamonds business. However, they are no longer the undisputed king of the diamond world. Their market share has declined steeply from 90% to somewhere around 30 to 35%. Alrosa, the Russian state-backed giant, currently is the market leader with the largest share, but nowhere near what De Beers held back in the day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Let me know what you think about De Beers in the comment section below. Let me know what topics you would want me to cover in the future episodes. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.